What's up, everybody? This video message is directed at anybody that was a participant for the Washington, D.C. MCAHS field trip that was scheduled for June of 2021. I would imagine most of you have heard the news and you got the email that was sent out to our whole group from Brightspark that the decision was made that we are postponing the trip for 1 year. I just wanted to send out a really brief video message and let you know that decision was not made lightly. And I know a lot of people are upset by that. Please look at it from our perspective. And ultimately, it ended up being my decision because I was the trip coordinator, but I didn't want to make that decision solely for our whole group. So I know that while I didn't do like a poll or any vote for all the participants, I did speak to all of the school chaperones and I spoke to several people from Brightspark. And the consensus was it was unanimous across all of us that it would not have been worth going this year in the first week of summer. Now, whichever way we went, I kind of feel for like Mr. Cook and, a lot of other school administrators that you're kind of, it almost feels like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, that the way things are during the pandemic, that no matter what decision you make on going on a trip like this or keeping schools open, you're not going to please everybody. Now, just know that it was not that any of us chaperones were concerned necessarily about our group getting COVID or illness or anything like that. The main thing, the big factor was that there are heavy restrictions in Washington, D.C. That was why I put this decision off as long as I could. And I figured by the time we hit spring break, we needed to make a decision one way or the other. Now, the Smithsonian Institutes, which I used to think was just one big building back when I was a kid, but it's actually 9 big buildings, each museum with a different topic. They're still currently shut down. They probably will be open by the time we were scheduled to go on the trip, but it was not going to be like normal where it was just open admission, because in normal times you could just I don't think I've ever waited more than 2 minutes to get into any of the Smithsonians. And the U.S. history one and the natural history one are probably my favorite parts of the trip. Usually you have to go through a metal detector, but typically it's a quick line. You go right through and then you go anywhere you want in the museum. It was going to be very regimented and you were going to have to schedule times and get tickets. It looked like most of the federal buildings were still going to be closed. Of course, a big part of the trip was we were going to go to the Capitol building. We were going to see the rotunda. We were going to be in several other federal buildings. In some of the open time, you can go see the National Archives. You could see the Library of Congress, the Treasury Department building. And it sounded like basically all of that was off limit. The Holocaust Museum, which was another really powerful part of the trip and an awesome museum to see. That one is probably going to be just totally closed down because a lot of the tour guides are Holocaust survivors that are up in age. And of course, they're concerned about getting COVID. And so that one would have likely just got scratched. So understand that, I hate the thought of anybody losing money or feeling like they got kind of like screwed in the whole process. And I know that this is an expensive trip. $850 for a student and about $950 for an adult chaperone. That's a lot of money for most people in our community. And one of the things that I had spun it as early on when we were promoting the trip, and I truly believe this, that in normal times, you get a lot of bang for your buck on this field trip, and that you truly, I think, get your money's worth. You see way more stuff than if you just did a road trip out there with your family. And I know because I have done a road trip there with my family in the last year, and I felt like the last time I went with the Michigan Center group in Brightspark, boy, I saw tremendous amount more stuff. And it's really handy having a tour guide and a bus taking you around. If we would have gone this year in June, I couldn't have looked you in the eyes and said, I think you're getting the most bang for your buck and your money's worth, because approximately half of the things that were scheduled on the itinerary were either going to be scratched totally or they were going to be really restricted and not look like they do in normal times. Another big issue that weighed into this decision, it was mandated now through Brightspark for the time being that if we were going to go on the trip, everybody that was going on the trip, that was getting on a bus, had to show proof of a negative COVID test that had happened. I forget the time frame, but with basically from the week before. That would have been a nightmare to get administered. And man, I was dreading knowing that, like, with a group our size, 80 people going, I almost certainly would have had to turn people away at the last minute and not let them on the bus if they didn't have all their paperwork and their COVID test all ready to go. And that would have broke my heart. I would have hated to do that after investing so much, of your money into the trip. So it was a tough decision. Now, if you choose to not go, the best scenario we came up with, because we were debating to just cancel the trip outright or to postpone it. If we would have just canceled it, those that had bought insurance would have been out that $79. Those that had not would have been out approximately $120 to $150. I hated the thought of people just losing money on a trip like this due to the pandemic. So the best scenario, the best situation we could come up with was by postponing it. Anybody that does let it ride and they're going to go next year, the first week of summer in June 2022, you won't lose anything. And I also got reassurances from BrightSpark that even if costs go up for the restaurants or any of the museums we're going to, I asked them, like, well, the people that have paid in full at this point, were they going to have to owe another $20 or $50 or $100? And they assured me that no. If once you're paid in full and you've booked up to that point, they will make it work. And if anything, they'll eat the cost to make sure that we get the same trip that we had booked, and we'll hit all of those things on the itinerary. So that was the best situation, kind of the best outcome for a bad situation. And that was kind of the consensus amongst all the chaperones and the BrightSpark representatives, that pushing it off 1 year, man, fingers crossed, everything will be back to normal. That the pandemic will be over. Hopefully we're not in masks, and we can go and enjoy the trip and see everything that was on the itinerary. Now, worst case scenario, and I've had a few people ask me this, what if the pandemic lasts, or if like COVID 2.0 comes out and there's another wave and the virus mutates or something? What if there's heavy restrictions in June 2022? Well, at that point, I will promise you, we're not going to postpone the trip again. If worst case scenario, we get a year out and after spring break next year, we decide, man, it's still not worth going and we can't guarantee people that they're going to get their money's worth out of the trip, at that point, we'll just cancel the trip, and maybe the MCHS, DC field trip that runs every 2 years, that might just be a thing of the past. So in conclusion, I hope most of you are understanding and realize the difficult situation we were in. Hopefully most of you can kind of support and relate to the decision that we made. And I also hope most of you decide to stay in on the field trip and still choose to go next year in June 2022. I'll be sending out some more announcements in the near future. Once we have our new itinerary finalized, I'll get that out to you. If you do choose to leave the trip, well, you'll just contact BrightSpark, go to their website, and if you have any trouble getting a hold of anybody, I can get you in contact with our BrightSpark representative, and we'll get you a refund of your money minus the amount that you get taken off the insurance, or that $120 to $50. But hopefully most of you are in for the next time, and I'm looking forward to being done with the pandemic and hopefully having a great field trip next year in June 2022. Okay, if you do have any questions, concerns, if you just need to vent or, let me have it, my school email will be attached to this announcement too, or you can find it on the school website. A lot of you have my cell phone, but feel free to contact me with any questions, concerns, or if you need clarification on anything. Okay, have a good day, everybody. Yeah.